I wanted to ask really all three of you to maybe reflect on what your original plans were for this year and how those have had to change, and then to focus, I suppose, mostly on what you've been up to in the last year.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Diana. Yeah, well, so welcome to my studio in Ladybank. When we were talking about having this conversation between us, it was about kind of, yeah, what happened in lockdown. And I suppose I was really lucky, one of the lucky ones, because I've got my own studio. And so I could just carry on working. There was nobody to stop me from coming. I know that some of the big WASP studios had to shut. So kind of the lockdown thing happened all of a sudden. And I think initially I just thought that I would just carry on working the way that I'd been working. You know, it seemed like there shouldn't be a reason to stop. But quite quickly it seemed, I don't know how everybody else felt, but I came to a real kind of like crunching standstill. If I showed some images before we hit lockdown, see if I get this right. Oh, and that's the wrong image. Hold on. Yeah, I was going to show some images before I hit lockdown. I was working on a body of work, new work inspired by healing powers of plants. And the first two images on this kind of show you, so it was a departure for me. I'd been working on this work. The compositions were much more complicated than I'd been doing before. And I was working with acrylics. This one here is a composition inspired by a mind opening recipe. So it's got poppies and bindweeds. And so I was working with acrylic on aluminium. It was a new medium. This next one, again, you can see a complicated composition as based on a recipe for immortality. And it's acrylic on wood panel. And so the reason I'm sort of showing you this before lockdown, it was a challenge for me. I was challenging myself. It was a big deal kind of for me just on my own in the studio. And I wanted to just keep going. And I just found I couldn't. It was too much to kind of focus. I felt really tired. And so that first, I think it was mid-March that we hit lockdown. And then that first couple of weeks, I kept coming in, kind of ready to keep going and just didn't. And one of the kind of things I do is the social media thing I do is Instagram. And it's the one thing that comes easily. And I think loads of artists do it. And this scheme appeared on Instagram called the Artist Support Pledge. And I saw artists, I think in fact Kirsty Whiten, you were the first person I saw doing it. And I was like, oh, what's that? And it was all works under £200. And I thought I'll have a go. And I posted an old painting of a daisy chain from years ago. And it sold really quickly. And before I knew it, I had a load of orders for a daisy chain. So having not been able to really do much work for the first couple of weeks, I then seemed to be every day making a daisy chain on my way to the studio, making a daisy chain, painting a daisy chain, and then posting it and selling it. And it kind of became this kind of weird existence where it was really busy. And I don't know how to explain it, but the daisy chains, I've painted a lot of those sort of over the last 20 years. And there was something about being able to just paint something really familiar. It was a comfort zone. It kept me painting. It was selling, and I was getting such lovely responses. And yeah, so that's kind of, that just sort of dominated. And there was something about painting small things. And so I started, again, spring appeared, April, and it was springtime. So that was very cheering. Started making tiny posies. So this has got the pen outline, and it's the size of a post-it note. So, tiny posies, making tiny paintings. And again, Artist Support Pledge, you know, selling the paintings. And then this piece I thought would be nice to show. It was a commission, and it was a lockdown commission, and it was from a couple who have other artworks of mine, and they're older and they'd been shielding in lockdown, and but they live near their small grandchildren. They couldn't see, they'd moved there to be near them. Anyway, these grandchildren every day were leaving flowers on their doorstep, wild flowers for Granny, and so they commissioned this painting of a range of the flowers that they'd received. So this was that was nice. It was nice to have a project to work on as well. So again, that was maybe June, out gathering the purple vetch. Again, it was all local. I could just get everything here, gather the flowers, and worked on this piece. So that was a bit bigger. And then as the sort of summer kind of progressed, and things seemed to relax a bit, and it was almost like my energy came back a bit. So I started kind of moving towards the healing powers of plants again, but still sitting with the votive offering, the posy motif. And this was one I made that was from a recipe for an anti-wrinkle recipe for beauty. So these are kind of marigolds from my garden and an old teasel, and so this is a bit bigger again. This is the painting I made, and I was starting to relax. I don't know if you can see the sort of dribbles of paint. I was sort of starting to feel ready to venture a little bit wider, you know, than the tight small posies, you know. And I think the last, and this was another experiment, was working with there's lots of little mouse ear. The bright yellow flower looks quite dandelion-esque, and reminded me of, I don't know, I was thinking about the sun and the moon, and so this was a construction I made again as I was starting to feel ready to experiment. And this was me sort of trying to get looser with my paint, the watercolor. Everything's been watercolor since lockdown. Now that's a weird one, not sure why that is. And that's my last slide, which was really to sort of take me towards now, where, I mean, we're still obviously living this sort of strange life, but I am feeling now like, right, I really want to start embarking on back to some more complicated pieces again. And so this is just a sketch of sweet woodruff, which is one of a number of plants in a recipe I found that's called a celestial potion. I think it's a rejuvenating recipe, which has sweet woodruff, lily of the valley, vervain, and loosestrife in it. So this is me. I'm going to start embarking now towards a bigger painting with a lot going on, is where I'm looking to go now. So that was, yeah.
Thanks for that, Kirsty.
I'll just
You're going to unshare your screen. Yep, that's brilliant. Now you did freeze once or twice during that, so I don't know anyone else who has still got their microphones on. If you could mute those, and it might be handy if you stop video as well if you're not one of the panelists, and that might help with our bandwidth issue. Thank you. Well, I don't want to see you. It's lovely to see you, but that will just help on our technical aspect. So, and thanks for that. And I think I could probably do with some of the recipes as well as the paintings. I think those have got a really valuable contribution to how we're all feeling at the moment.
I know. So, well, I'm hoping that the power of just looking at the pictures could.
Yeah. Yes. Well, absolutely. Imbue us with the positive feelings. Well, they are. They're very positive pictures. So, thanks for that. Thanks. We will travel a little further across Fife, not too far from Ladybank, near Cooper, and we'll go to Craigrothy, where Kirsty Whiten is based, and we'll visit her studio next. So Kirsty, if you want to welcome us in, that would be really nice.
Yes, welcome to my studio in Craigrothy, which is in my house, which I built about 10 years ago with my then partner. I thought I would start by just describing my practice a little bit, just if anybody's not familiar with it, and then to talk about what I should have been doing and what I have been doing instead. I'm a figurative artist, and my use of materials is quite wide ranging. I use all sorts of drawing and painting materials. I like drawing with pencil and charcoal, and I like painting tiny little watercolor paintings, not unlike Kirsty Lorenz, but also really big sort of life-size paintings in acrylic and oils on canvas. And my practice is also wide-ranging in that it's mostly drawing and painting, but I sometimes do printmaking, and I've been known to use photos and film, even performance and what I'm doing, and whatever it is that will tell the story that I'm trying to tell, because that's what's really important in my work, is the story that I'm trying to tell. And although it's usually quite a simple image, I like it to be suggesting a lot of stuff that's going on outside of the frame at the same time. And the content of my work is really important to me. A lot of the content is perhaps a little bit challenging or provoking. I'm quite keen that my work is not always that comfortable to the viewer. And so I'm going to do the same thing and share my screen and show you some images too. How's that? Can you see the painting with the black background? Great. This is from a series of works that I did called Icon Oracle. And they were sort of loosely based on religious icons that I really like the Ecstasy of St. Teresa and St. Sebastian, which are paintings that are, yeah, they are simple religious images, but they've got a sense of humanity and sometimes sexuality in them. So that's why I've chosen to make this very plain dark background and the bright light figures in the centre. And this painting is, I don't know, it speaks to my interest in human psychology and ritual practices, cultural practices from around the world. And I focused on this ritual practice of applying pigment because I was so interested in how that's used in lots of different world cultures, and it usually suggests that there's a change going on, a transformation going on within the person. Either the pigment marks that change, or it actually is a catalyst to help that person change. And in this picture, I was really concerned with the gesture of acceptance and intimacy between the two figures. And when I make a painting like this, I work with models who are usually people that I know, and the kind of the way that we find the story and the way that I find that distilled image is that they come to my studio or I go to them and have a kind of a playful session with them, a sort of performative session where we try different costumes, different poses, and until the story starts to unfold in front of me and I can sort of see like, that's the one, that's where it's saying what I want it to say. This is one of the smaller watercolor pieces that I mentioned before. She's called The Crone. And I'm often really interested in trying to distill into a very simple, iconic image a lot of different possible meanings and readings. And so she's the crone, but she's also the mountain rock. So you can see down at the base there, there's a little campfire with campers. She's a kind of the simple archetype of the wise woman, but she's also many other things. I get a really big response to this image often. It seems to talk to people. And I love making those watercolors, and I love drawing because I really like the fragility of working on paper and the immediacy of it. And a really important part of my practice is life drawing from the model. So that's been a really sad thing in lockdown, that I haven't been able to work live with people. But I've discovered that there are lots of groups working online these days, and there's a great group in Glasgow and another in Edinburgh, All the Young Nudes in Glasgow, who've been filming video poses with models and then and casting them out on the internet, which has been a fantastic way to sort of keep up with this practice for me. And yeah, I've got a stack of these drawings for sale as part of the Open Studios thing over on my artist Facebook page. So if you'd like to have a look at that after. And this photo is here to remind me to talk about what I wasn't able to do and what I did do. Instead, sadly, I was talking to Arusha Gallery about having an exhibition in LA this year. And that has obviously not been possible. And I was a bit heartbroken about that, although it always seemed like a bit of a fairy tale. It's like a dream possibility. And I'd also been invited to Copenhagen by a Danish theatre company to work on a kind of a research and development workshop with some physical performers. And initially I was really devastated about that not happening as well, but then we moved it online and it worked really beautifully, which was a total surprise to me. And I learned so many things through this portal of daily we were talking on Zoom like this, and we also had an online board called Miro, and that was a place where we could put writing and photographs and video, and myself and the other director would sort of give the performers tasks to do, and then they would go away and make video art of dance or physical performance and then post them onto this board. So over the week, I didn't know any of these people in real life, so they were kind of like a group of imaginary friends. And we would just, we generated so much work by doing, sort of going away and doing these tasks, coming back together and discussing it, and just having, I don't know, that kind of portal where we met. It was really beautiful. And then this photo is from later in the year, in August, where I was able to go to Copenhagen in a little window of opportunity where it was safe to travel there and safe to be together in Copenhagen. And we did another week of work that was physically all together, and I was able to sort of do some directing, which was very exciting for me. And yeah, the work that I'm doing now is all coming from that project. And as Kirsty said, I've definitely suffered from all sorts of fluctuating energy during this time, and I totally, it really resonates with me what you're saying about working small. There's been a lot of sort of scaling everything back, and you can sort of see in the background that the paintings that I'm doing are not life-size at all. And the thing about that collaboration was that it was so beautiful to be connected with a group of other people, and to the collaboration of sort of bouncing ideas off each other really helped me, and I'm still really energized by the work that we generated. And so this is from one of the tasks that I set, which was for the women to go and get really involved with nature in some way. And Lala went and planted herself in her vegetable patch. And I loved this image. I loved that she's sort of rooted and grounded, and yeah, she has this kind of really strong foundation. You can sort of almost feel her like, I don't know, drawing strength from the ground, but she's also held back by it and isolated. And I really like that tension. And this is another one of the women sort of playing with a wedding dress in a reed bed. And so this one's called The Bride. And I've just got a sort of a wealth of stuff to work into over the next few months. So I'm quite happy that I'm going to have this time hunkered down in my home studio with that to work with. Thanks very much. That's me.
Thank you, Kirsty. That's really special, having access to this whole new kind of body of work that you're developing, and fantastic to hear of somebody who actually managed to do something that wasn't purely virtually based. So I'm really glad you had that opportunity and that you've been able to use that as a springboard for more work. So our third studio visit, we're going to go towards the Tay coast, and we're going to go through Tayport and pass the Taffa Gallery and continue to Helen Glassford's studio. And Helen was founder of the Taffa Gallery. She's now drawing back from her main involvement in it to concentrate on her own practice as an artist. But the Taffa Gallery hopefully is somewhere that people will be able to continue to visit, even in these difficult times. At the moment it has been open, so that's somewhere that people can actually go and see some work. But anyway, we are now in Wormit, and we've reached Helen's studio, so I'll hand over to Helen. Thank you.
Hi everybody. Thank you very much for being here today. And I know there's people from all over the world actually watching today, which is quite extraordinary. And that is the power of social media and the way things are going at the moment. So welcome to my studio, actually just inside Newport-on-Tay, but we won't quibble about that when it's just as pleasant. So yes, and thank you for mentioning Tatha Gallery. I'd like to say that it is opening. It is open now. It's open for visitors and it's thriving. We've got a fantastic show on. It's been an absolute pleasure to have been part of Tatha for all of these years. It's sad to be leaving, but at the same time, I'm really, really happy about my future and about diverting my energy more towards my own work and really what I need to be doing in life. So it's exciting times for me, which kind of comes at the end of quite a difficult year for everybody. It's been fascinating in terms of my practice. I started the year off with in the middle of producing a body of work for the Scottish Gallery, part of a landscape exhibition that I have just shown in. So I was in the middle of this series of works when all of this kind of chaos started happening. I also took a visit down to London to be part of the Affordable Art Fair just the week before lockdown, which was, quite an experience. It really gave me a big wake-up call as to really what was happening in the world. Suddenly, an art fair that would have been bustling, it would have had hundreds of people through the door, was practically empty by the Saturday. Thursday night was busy, Friday less busy, Saturday practically empty. So I came back a little bit shaken up by all that, and quite rightly so. A week later, my daughter was off school and, we're in lockdown. So the big work that I had been working on almost just had to take a stand back. I had to take a stand back from it. It was, I didn't really want to go near it at that point. They were almost finished, almost ready for the gallery, but I had to say no. But at the same time, all of that was happening. Kirsty mentioned it earlier, the artist support pledge on Instagram. Now I've, immediately kind of found solace in producing small works, small windows of life elsewhere. We all wanted to be visiting places. Our thoughts would go to all the places that we couldn't go to. And so it was a perfect opportunity for me to, go back into my memories and paint the places I really wanted to be in, places I really wanted to go to. And so, yeah, I produced a lot of work for the Artist Pledge because it was so successful. I believe Matthew Burrows today, the guy who initiated the Artist Pledge, got an MBE for his services. It's been incredible. He's made a little microeconomy where artists supported artists, and also then clients came in, and it's taken off. And off the back of that, got many followers, and it's made many contacts, and bigger work has been going out of the door because of it. So it's been an amazing opportunity to do all that. So I'd be simply painting works on paper like this. And as I said, they were all kind of mixed media. I love to go back to watercolor, acrylics, and explore my use of pastels again. And they were instantaneous, they were fun to do, they were energetic. And again, it did give me some solace in the fact that there's a lot of craziness going on in the world. At the same time as doing all that, I also made a book of all the works that I've been doing, and it was called Intermittent Constant. I think I loved the idea that we normally love routine. It makes us feel safe. it's a constant. We like these things to keep us a little bit more on the level. But my idea was that actually we need a little bit of craziness, a little bit of push and a shove, of the intermittent qualities in life, because if we didn't, then perhaps, you know, we wouldn't be quite so favourable to them. We do need, you know, a good kick up the bum sometimes. And so this book and the Artist Pledge thing really gave me a kick up the bum. And, you know, I love producing this book. It's also gone out all over the world, which has been an amazing thing to be able to say. So all in all, the Artist Pledge and all of this series has been really, really positive for me. A lot of the work that I did for that came from my visits over on the West Coast. I'd been to Torridon early on in the year. And a lot of my work is based on the wilder places in Scotland and these remote places that people love to go to. I kind of like to immerse myself in the wild weather. This time last year I was in Rannoch Moor, and it possibly was one of the coldest days of the year. So I still love to go out and do these crazy things. But I think when it comes back to actually painting in the studio, I managed to be able to find some kind of sense of calm within the work. It's a reminder of a place I've been, but I also like to add a mysticism to the work as well. If I've got time, I've got a little bit of a screen share thing to do here if I can. Just bear with me. Of some recent work. Hang on. So can you see that there? So this piece here, Floating Islands, came from a visit I did last year, right up past Ullapool. So, you know, things keep coming back a year on. So these are kind of small works I've been working on.
And can I ask Helen, these works are kind of made in remembrance, aren't they? So you have sketches and do you take photographs, or how do you?
I tend to work from sketchbooks, Diana. So I'll do notations and marks in sketchbooks. I'll you know, make notes of how the place felt. Yeah. And it really is about capturing the light and the moment at that time, but the memory obviously distorts it as well. So that then becomes really interesting process of, and then getting the paint to work to make that happen, to make it say the thing that you want to say. You know, I paint, these are oil paintings or acrylic on board. And so I'll be painting in very thin layers and wiping off, lifting off, and adding opaque layers, and then adding more translucent layers on top. So these are the oils you're seeing, whereas my Artist Pledge pieces were, say, the mixed media pieces. These ones I'd probably actually say more East Coast, with the weather coming off. Off the north, yes, the North Sea.
Yes, you can feel it. You absolutely can feel it.
You certainly can. I hope that gives you an idea of what these recent small pieces have been about. These are all on my website as part of the Open Studios weekend. So you're very welcome to go and visit that on there.
Absolutely. There's just a question here from Kate, who wonders about the scale of these oils that we've been looking at just now.
This one called When the Sun Spent Sun, which is after Robert Frost and the poem. This is just a small one, 20 centimetres square. Right. But I had been working on metre square pieces previous to lockdown, which aren't too dissimilar to this, and they were a metre square. So I've scaled what was big down to a smaller size. But I think something like Flow there would actually work on a fantastic big scale. I think that would be great.
Yes, I think that interesting question, because there is an ambiguity there that they look like they are large works. So
yeah,
that's interesting that all three of you actually have been working in that kind of compressed way, working on a smaller scale perhaps than you would have been working on before lockdown. We'll maybe ask all three of you now to come together and see if you have questions for each other. Now, we've only had that one question through chat, so please, everyone who's out there, if you would like to ask another question, do that either through the chat, or if you're finding the chat too much of you'd prefer to just actually speak whatever your question is, then you can unmute and just sort of say who you are and ask your question. But Kate, come on. Hello there, Kate.
Hi there, everyone. It's lovely to see you, and it's brilliant because I know exactly where you all are and your studios, which is brilliant. And it's so lovely that you're kind of overcoming the lack of open studios. I kind of chickened out a bit from all this. I thought, if it can't be real, I don't want it to happen. But having said that, it's been really interesting to see how the three different ways that you're coping. We're all coping, it's affected everyone in so many ways. And just to say thank you so much. It's been really, really interesting. Thank you.
All right. Thanks for joining us, Kate.
Oh, pleasure.
I want to ask you other two about your energy levels, because we all mentioned that when we were talking, and I was just wondering if each of you would talk about that a little bit. About have you found that your ability to concentrate and focus has been affected?
Definitely. And there's I know, like, when we talked about doing this conversation, that we all have school-aged children. And that has definitely made an impact on my ability to concentrate because of the homeschooling aspect, and having kids in the studio, or you having to make sure basically you're responsible for them. And so I found that my day was no longer a day. It was really I could maybe come first thing in the morning till about 1 o'clock. I would have a child arrive about 10. I would have to try to get them to do some work while I was working. So there was no way I could do anything too difficult. So there was that for me. I don't know how you guys coped with it. And then there was just this strange sort of pervasive, it was the situation. You would go from thinking you were fine, it's fine, it's all fine, and then you would suddenly be really not fine. I think you described it as how did you describe it, Kirsty? It was like it really fluctuated.
Mm-hmm. Something that you called it the Corona coaster. It was like a real up and down of energy. Yeah.
I think I found that I was really self-disciplined. I decided that I'd be up early in the morning, I would paint, and really absolutely go for it. I had just so much energy to actually burn and to actually get out there and paint and get all these ideas down, that in many ways it was quite a positive experience for me. I probably actually nearly kind of fell off the cliff at the end because I was so exhausted from it, but at the time I was embracing it, and I thought, well, I would get up and work. Annabelle would be in bed until 10:30, and then I would do the homeschooling and then get back to work and package things. I mean, it was brilliant, but manic at the same time.
There was a certain energy that came from a sense of crisis, and I harnessed that too. I lost a lot of teaching work that would have been the way that I would normally survive
Okay.
at that time. And then it all came back in an online course that I was able to teach. But in order to do that, I had to make videos of me drawing and doing the kind of tuition that I would do in person. And then I had to have video calls with the students.
Mm-hmm.
And I threw myself into that. When I think back to that, that was early lockdown. I threw myself into that in a manic way, exactly. And sort of like coping with the sense of crisis by really going for it.
Great.
Yeah, my teaching stopped as well. That's a good point, because I usually run weekly classes here at the studio, and initially it stopped and it felt like, oh, we'll be back after Easter, and then, you know, and here we are, October, and I'm still not teaching. And yeah, that's definitely something that's changed. But unlike you, Kirsty, I haven't tried to do it online, but it seemed like a step too far. It maybe works better when it's the working with a life model. I don't know. I'm in awe that you've done it.
It's very interesting because I saw a lot of people come up with creative solutions to things really quickly. And yeah, same thing, I was in awe of people, friends of mine in Edinburgh, who immediately started an Instagram cabaret and were putting on 10 performers every Saturday night. And sort of, I mean, it was just on Instagram, but people were really coming together to watch the performers and so on. And within the teaching, I found that there were little things that gave me, I don't know, they gave a bit of balance, because there were a lot that you lose from not being with everybody, obviously. But then there were things that you gain. You know, when I was making a video about how to draw tonal values, I was able to switch off the colour and say, you know, this green object and this orange object are the same tone. You don't believe me? You know, like, and there were things that you couldn't demonstrate in real life. You know, turn something upside down and get people to draw it or whatever. And it was quite nice to, I don't know, to try and come up with creative solutions to things. To balance it out.
Vicky Cassells has asked a question along those lines. It's asking about the virtual communication and the impact that COVID has had through this time. You know, have we found a new approach to face this? And so I think I would add there that the galleries are, you know, doing an amazing job doing these Zoom online previews and connecting people from all over the world. You know, there have been new opportunities and people have found new ways of actually doing things. And even going forward, galleries and artists really do have to actually, you know, embrace it all and you know, connect in these ways. And you're finding it helps your work. You've changed your work slightly. And I think Vicky also asked there, no, I think it was from Philippa, sorry, that are we creatively planning for exhibiting and showing your work next year in this changed world? And that's an interesting question, isn't it?
Yeah, I am. I mean, I'm hopeful. Yeah, I'm hoping. I've got an exhibition next summer, and I'm just thinking now, in order to kind of, like, as I was saying about going back to making the more kind of complex compositions and kind of really going for that, I'm just going to, for the moment, just go, well, hopefully by next August, you know, it might be possible, and I'm just going to work for that at the moment.
People are still out there visiting galleries. You know, there's proof of that here. There have to be art galleries, there has to be museums, there has to be, you know, places for people to find that solace and to go and enjoy the work. So hopefully the galleries can keep going. I think certainly online sales, people have suddenly shifted to buying work online and feeling secure in that. So even if there aren't the same numbers going to galleries, they're certainly going to be seeing the work, whether it's online, you know, virtually or in the actual space itself. So absolutely, yes, we're still going to be planning for exhibitions next year and going for it.
I felt as well that, sorry, shall I just go with that? I felt as well that the value of, well, my subject specifically being plants and nature, but I was noticing as well, obviously for both of you, nature is really significant. I loved those images you just showed at the end, Kirsty, of the bride and the woman in her vegetable patch. It's just fantastic. But really felt that people, my audience or a broader audience, the importance of nature, our connection to nature, our relationship with nature, and it's the whole kind of connectivity has really come to the fore. And I felt that has really, people have engaged more with my work. I've been aware of it more.
Yeah.
And I think the value of art and, you know, of poetics, of meaning, of, you know, in times of crisis, you know, it's on the one hand you're going, it's not food, it's not shelter, but it's really important.
Yeah, there's more to life, that's for sure, than surviving. And that kind of addresses one of the questions that's come up, which was about how all of you have been kind of engaging with the kind of sometimes the chaos or randomness of the natural world, and you know, has this helped you deal with the unpredictability of life during this pandemic? And as you're saying, it's helping the audience, if you like, as much as it is as the artist, isn't it?
I think the artist mindset is ready for that, isn't it? I mean, there were a lot of people who were saying, everything's so unstable now, and I don't know where my next bit of money is coming from, and I'm having to make everything up as I go along. And I was like, yeah, welcome to my life. That's what we all do all the time. We have to just think on our feet, and we have to you come up with a little creative solution. And yeah, I think that way of living, and sort of being curious, being ready for the next thing, and trying to be courageous as well, is all part of living life as an artist. And so I think it means that we are prepared.
I think
yeah,
another of the questions was about how COVID has affected you all financially. And as you say, you're kind of starting off from a fairly perilous situation anyway as an artist, as a freelancer who's working through different kinds of activities to sustain your practice. But have you found it particularly tough, all three of you, through this year, because of, you know, opportunities that have disappeared? You know, has it had more of a kind of pressure on you from that point of view, stress as well?
I think there's been an incredible positivity towards art through this time. I think people have realized that they need art in their lives.
Yeah.
You know, especially with people being isolated and, you know, maybe stuck within their four walls. And, you know, they've embraced it, and they've gone, well, this is actually going to enhance my life. This is going to make my life a bit better. So I've had a wonderful reaction to it. And yes, there's always a concern, you know, financially. Most self-employed people are in that same situation. But I think, as Kirsty said, that, you know, we embrace change perhaps in a way, and, you know, in this creative way, and we're able to react to it. And I think that's something a lot of artists, you know, we have that skill, or a lot of people have that skill.
Yeah, the Artist Supports Pledge, which you've all, I think, contributed to, shows how artists can kind of organise themselves to find ways of supporting each other, as well as working with other organisations.
I think what's quite important there is that the Artist Support Pledge has turned, one, Instagram into a selling market. It's a marketplace, and number two is actually saying that it's okay for artists to sell their work.
Yeah.
Yes, galleries are there to support and enhance, but artists are now saying, I can do it. And actually going for it, you know, not being scared about doing it. You know, there's nothing wrong with selling your own work. And I think the mental shift for this has been extraordinary for artists, and actually empowered artists to actually go on and do it for themselves.
Because the open studios as a kind of event is something that has kind of exploded in the last few years around the country as a way of artists meeting with the public and being able to talk about their work and finding it a way of being able to sell direct. And I think, you know, people really, you know, appreciate that opportunity of the encounter with the artist as well as the work when that's possible. And things like Instagram stories and you know, there are various ways of bringing some of that personal information, I suppose, to the kind of virtual side. There's another question here which is about whether there's an aspect or aspects of your lockdown practice that you will be continuing with, things that you've learned through having to adjust through this period. Kirsty Whiten, I can see you nodding.
Yeah, for sure. I think the way that I described this, the collaboration, where I worked online and before I met the people in person, that was so surprising to me. I never, you know, I was really concerned about it beforehand, but it was wonderful to have this virtual space, this imagined space together at the beginning of the project. And I think I would definitely work that way again. And yeah, as Helen said, she used the word I was going to use, empowered by the Artist Support Pledge and by sort of this, the way that we're all presenting ourselves through these open studios to have a direct contact with people. I really like that, and I do feel empowered.
Yeah, I've found that, I mean, the fact that we didn't have our open studios in May was, you know, that's usually a really busy weekend for me here, and one where I make sales. And so yeah, it certainly pushed, like, you know, to initiate this conversation between us online. I would never have done this in a million years. And it's good. I do miss seeing people, you know. There's something really great about just engaging with people and talking to people, whether it's artists or audience or, you know, but we've just got to get on with it, haven't we? But the Artist Support Pledge made you feel connected to the world because people were buying directly from you. When you sell through a gallery, obviously you're not having communication with the buyer. And I found one of the most uplifting things through it was the messages I would get from people when they received the artwork and the value that they placed on that artwork. Suddenly that shift from going, oh, what is the point in what I am doing? You know, I should be a doctor, I should be doing something really useful. And it made the value of it came across because of that conversation. That I found that really powerful, kind of spiritually, that sort of the motivation to create, and that it was worth it, you know. And actually, sort of back to that question about losing income, I've made more money this year than I did last year without teaching. Incredible. Would never. I mean, I'm not going on any skiing holidays.
But that's a real confidence boost, isn't it? To see that your practice can sustain you in that way. So that's really good. That's really positive. There's a question about how you all use social media to engage with people, and I think you've touched on that obviously in terms of the social media enabling sales, but also that kind of direct communication with the people who are acquiring work by you. And I know you've all, I think, got pretty kind of healthy social media platforms going, which allow, you know, people to have some interaction. So yeah, that covers that, I think.
Instagram seems to be a real natural for artists, or, you know, more than I'm not very good with Facebook. Instagram, I love it, and I do it, you know, without really worrying about it.
It's the simplicity, isn't it? Because in Facebook or Twitter, I get really easily bewildered. But in Instagram, we have just like a simple, you know, you're going to show one image and say something about it, and then you're going to view it as a sort of a strip of simple images.
There's an interesting branding thing that goes on with Instagram. You know, you as any company would, you can brand your own feed with your art, obviously, and so you
Yeah.
have a certain feel to your page, you have a certain feel to how you present your work, and you know, hopefully followers, you know, latch onto that. And so Instagram really does work in that way.
The other thing, actually, sorry, there was one other thing I wanted to mention about the Artist Support Pledge. Sorry to bang on about it. But it was this sort of, it was that being connected to people, but it was, you know, artists were buying work from each other. Part of that pledge, I don't know, maybe not everybody knows, but was that you pledged that once you'd sold £1,000 worth of work, that you would then buy another artist's work for £200. So you were pledging 20% of your sales to feed back into that marketplace, to feed back to other artists. There were artists that I have admired for years came to me and bought my artwork. And I was absolutely, I can't tell you how thrilling that was. And it was artists, I'd never met them. I would have been scared to speak to them, you know, and then you would get a message saying, I'd like to buy that. And it was like the flattery, it can't get any better than being exchanged for some money.
Yeah.
It was amazing. Yeah.
Oh, that's lovely.
It was really instructive, the part where I bought other work from other artists.
Yeah.
Because I would normally consider that to be an incredible luxury. I would think to myself, I'd love to have a painting, but you know, I should buy my children shoes or something. And so to buy these works was so exciting, and to be on the other end of that equation. And like you said, I mean, I had such a deep emotional experience of receiving those and having them as things of value. They're in my studio right here, and kind of glowing. Like, it's really exciting.
I'm the same. I would never buy art because I couldn't afford it, and then you're like, oh, but I've said I'm definitely going to do this, so I'm going to do this. And yeah, lovely pieces of work. It's just brilliant. Mm-hmm.
Well, I think we've been talking for almost an hour, so I think some people may want to go onto the websites now and see more work by all three of you. If you go to the Open Studios North Fife website, you will be directed to artist pages. There's also the Open Studios Hub on Facebook, which will give you more information. And through the artist pages, you will find the different websites and Instagrams, etc., for the artists. We've had a really lovely comment in the kind of chat, which says that discussions like this have enlarged my small world, connecting with artist friends here and across the globe. So thank you. So I think it has been a really positive conversation in a time which has got a lot of challenges for us. So from myself and Fife Contemporary and from the three artists, I'd like to thank everybody who came along today. And
Diana, can I just thank you, Diana?
At all.
Thank you so much for helping us with this. You got roped in like absolutely last minute on a day that you weren't even working. And, you know, so thank you very much.
Not at all. It's always fascinating for me to learn more about what artists are doing and about their practice. So no, it's been a great way for me to sample a bit of the Open Studios this year. So I'm hoping to actually get into your studios next year. So we'll have to just cross our fingers. But yeah, I'll keep in touch with you, and we'll sort out the recording. But again, thank you to everybody who came along today. And hopefully we'll be able to do some more of these conversations. I think, yeah, it works really well. So thank you, everybody. And I will save the chat and close the meeting, I think.
Oh,
so,
thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye then.
Bye, Mum.